In this video, I'm going to review the top 5 best CPUs for Davinci Resolve. If you are looking for an optimal match, then this video will help you find the most suitable processor for your video editing software. I researched a number of CPUs and filtered out some of the best for a better experience of Davinci Resolve. I'll leave the links to the discussed CPUs in the description, you can check them for more information and the latest prices. So, let's get started. At number first, it is AMD Ryzen 9 3950X. The AMD Ryzen 9 3950X is a desktop processor with 16 cores. Looking at these overall scores, the AMD Ryzen 9 3950X does pretty well. Overall, the AMD Ryzen 9 3950X is a very solid choice for Davinci Resolve. While more complex grades in Resolve often depend more on the power of your GPU than your CPU, for relatively basic grading and editing the 3950X can provide up to a 10 to 20% increase in performance over the Ryzen 9 3900X, or a 40 to 50% increase in performance over the Core i9 9900. AMD is building the Ryzen 9 3950X on a 7nm production process using 3800 million transistors. The silicon dies of the chip is not fabricated at AMD, but at the foundry of TSMC. Compared to the Core i9 9960X, the 3950X is on par when it comes to 4K media, but takes a 6% lead for 8K media. It is part of the Ryzen 9 lineup, using the Zen 2 Matisse architecture socket AM4. Thanks to AMD simultaneous multithreading, the core count is effectively doubled to 32 threads. Ryzen 9 3950X has 64 MB of 3-layer cache and operates at 3.5 GHz by default, but can boost up to 4.7 GHz, depending on the workload. At number 2, it is AMD Ryzen 5900X. The AMD Ryzen 9 5900X is an absolute monster of a CPU, bringing the biggest jump in single-core performance in years, which helps make the processor stronger across the board. The AMD Ryzen 9 5900X is built on the Zen 3 architecture, which on a surface level may look similar to Zen 2, they're both 7nm. However, AMD has redesigned the architecture from the ground up to increase IPC performance and efficiency to the point where it leaves no prisoners. Ryzen 9 5900X CPU cores are built on the same 7nm silicon fabrication process as the Ryzen 3000 Zen 2 processor, but with several refinements to the microarchitecture. This processor is enabled through two 6-core chiplets, but all the cache is still enabled at 32 MB per chiplet 64 MB total. At number 3, it is Intel Core i9 9900K 8-core. Intel's 8-core Core i9 9900K comes with everything to satisfy enthusiasts, like more cores, higher frequencies, and performance-boosting solder TIM. It is the most powerful CPU in the 9th generation Intel Core lineup for Davinci Resolve. It is part of the Core i9 lineup, using the Coffee Lake refresh architecture with 1151 socket. Thanks to Intel hyper-threading, the core count is effectively doubled to 16 threads. It has 16 MB of 3-layer cache and operates at 3.6 GHz by default, but can boost up to 5 GHz, depending on the workload. Intel is making the Core i9 9900K on a 14nm production node, the transistor count is unknown. You may freely adjust the unlocked multiplier on Core i9 9900K, which simplifies overclocking greatly, as you can easily dial in any overclocking frequency. With a TDP of 95 watts, it consumes a good deal of power, so decent cooling is needed. Intel's processor supports DDR4 memory with an Agile channel interface. The highest officially supported memory speed is 2666 MHz, but with overclocking and the right memory modules you can go even higher. This processor features the ultra-high-definition 630 integrated graphics solution. In fact, Intel even suggests the Intel Core i9 9900K is the world's best gaming desktop processor. A bold claim, sure, but with a boost clock speed of 5 GHz and the capability to overclock, such a suggestion doesn't seem so far-fetched. At number 4, it is AMD Ryzen 5950X. The red team is promising the AMD Ryzen 9 5950X as the ultimate gaming CPU, the pinnacle of all its Zen 3 processors, and the outright fastest too. We've been full of praise for AMD's new Ryzen 5000 series processors. The already strong multi-threaded and content creation performance of Ryzen 3000 processors has been further enhanced, and AMD's lead has been extended over the Intel competition under these kinds of loads. What we were really keen on seeing was whether the Zen 3 chip's gaming performance took a big enough leap to see AMD take the coveted gaming crown. The 16-core, 32-thread Ryzen 9 5950X is the top model in the Ryzen 5000 series range. The base clock is 3.4 GHz and its boost clock is 4.9 GHz. Its dies contain 8 cores and 32 MB of 3-layer cache each, for a total of 64 MB. It's compatible with X570, B550, and even A520 motherboards, with X470 and B450 compatibility to follow. TDP of the Ryzen 9 5950X remains an impressive 105 watts. I think AMD would like to officially increase this, but remember that the 5950X is supposed to remain compatible with cheap B450 and A520 boards. The power consumption of the 5950X is still impressive, however, drawing less power from the wall than an Intel Core i9-9900K despite having double the number of cores. Overclocking the high core count Zen 3 processors can net you a significant multi-threading boost, but since the 5950X can already boost to 4.9 GHz and even above 5 GHz under lighter loads such as while gaming and video editing. At number 5, it is AMD Ryzen 9 3900X. The Ryzen 9 3900X is the highest clock 3rd gen Ryzen chip available right now, booting from 3.8 GHz up to 4.6 GHz. The AMD Ryzen 9 3900X is another best desktop processor for Davinci Resolve with 12 cores. It is part of the Ryzen 9 lineup, using the Zen 2 Matisse architecture socket AM4. Thanks to AMD simultaneous multithreading, the core count is effectively doubled to 24 threads. Ryzen 9 3900X has 64 MB of 3-layer cache and operates at 3.8 GHz by default, but can boost up to 4.6 GHz, depending on the workload. AMD is making the Ryzen 9 3900X on a 7nm production node, using 3800 million transistors. The silicon dies of the chip are not fabricated at AMD, but at the foundry of Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company. You may freely adjust the unlocked multiplier on Ryzen 9 3900X, which simplifies overclocking greatly, as you can easily dial in any overclocking frequency. AMD's processor supports DDR4 memory with a dual-channel interface. The highest officially supported memory speed is 3200 MHz, but with overclocking and the right memory modules, you can go even higher. This processor does not have integrated graphics, you will need a separate graphics card. Hardware virtualization is available on the Ryzen 9 3900X, which greatly improves virtual machine performance. Programs using advanced vector extensions can run on this processor, boosting performance for calculation-heavy applications. But this fifth AMD Ryzen 9 3900X, I have come to the end of my review. These all 5 are the best CPUs for Davinci Resolve. Now it's up to you which will meet your budget and requirements. In my opinion, AMD Ryzen 9 3950X is the overall best CPU in terms of performance, playing games and video editing. The link is in the description below. Thanks for watching this video.